Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Divers Ready. My name's James. It is so great to see all of your smiling faces. It's the last Thursday in April, which means it's just enough time for us to give you a little channel update and for me to do my dive instructor Q&A through the questions that you've submitted in the comment section of the videos using the hashtag AskDiversReady. And we've got some great questions coming up, but there's just enough time before we get to those for me to give you a little bit of the behind the scenes of what's been happening at Divers Ready and what's coming up in the next few weeks. Starting with the fact that the end of next month, it's my birthday and it's kind of a big one this year. Yep, that's right, I've hit the big 4-0. And whilst Karina and I are going to slip away privately and celebrate on our own, there is something that the people out there might be wondering, oh, you know, what could we gift James with? Well, Divers Ready is creeping up to 40,000 subscribers. And for the last few months, it's been kind of Karina and I's private joke as to what's going to happen first. Do I hit 40 or does the channel hit 40,000? But growth has slowed a little bit in the last month. So I'm going to ask you guys, I have no shame at all, that if you wanted to get me a really special birthday present this year, the best thing you could do is help us with that push towards 40,000. Now, I know everybody watching this is already a subscriber. You can't subscribe again. So what could you do? Well, what I'd ask is if you want to go back through our back catalogue of videos and pick out your absolute favorite video and then just share it on your social media with no request, no nothing else, just to put our content out there. That would really mean the world to me. And like I said, we've been watching it week by week and I'm getting older, the channel's growing, but then I'm getting older too fast and, you know, it's just a fun little race that we're having. So if you wanted to help us out with that, that would be awesome. In other news, of course, we did the big $10,000 unboxing the other day, and thank you to everyone who commented on that. I have got the rig wet now. I've done the first 2 dives with it. I've got some test footage, so I'm going to be doing a video coming up in the next couple of weeks where I'm going to be talking through all the little ins and outs of the camera setup I've got and then showing you some of the initial test footage that I've recorded out on the shallow reefs of Key Largo. And I've also got the DPV wet, and we've done a GoPro scooter tour of my favorite wreck down in Key Largo, the mighty Spiegel Grove. So I can't wait to share both of those things with you. And coming up next Monday will be the next installment of the series that I share with my good friend Matthias Lebo, Across the Ocean, where we're starting to look at how to edit underwater sequences, and I'm actually going to bring you behind my studio into the editing suite that I use and that Matthias over in Zurich uses to edit the underwater videos that we put out. So just little tools that we can give you to help improve the quality of the underwater filmmaking that you guys are doing out there. Super excited to share all that. Probably the biggest news I've got for you this month is that I was selected as a brand ambassador for, you guessed it, Light Emotion. I couldn't be happier with this partnership. This is a brand and a company that I've used for many, many years. Basically since my technical diving career began down in the Caribbean, we would use the solar torches on dives. That's a habit that I've carried on with, and they've always been incredibly reliable products. They actually organically saw the review that I did for Solar Dive Pro without me sending it to them. They reached out to me and asked if I wanted to come on board their team, and I absolutely jumped at the chance. One of the advantages of that is that I now have a commitment to them to show more behind the scenes footage. So if you want to check out what's going on with Divers Ready and you can't wait for our weekly Monday videos, follow us on Instagram, because that's where I'm going to be posting a lot more sort of behind the scenes as I'm setting up shots, as I'm setting up for a dive and all that kind of good stuff. Our Instagram is Divers Ready, and I'll put a link to it in the description of this video below. I think that's all the news, so I'm going to have a sip of tea and then we'll jump into the Q&A, and I've got them up here on my screen. Let's see what you guys have asked this month. Miranda Hammond, 4 weeks ago, she asked, can we get a video on how to pack for a scuba travel trip, especially if we don't have a gear bag and have to use a regular suitcase? Miranda, yes, absolutely. This is a very big thing for us. We're getting ready for the sardine run. We've got a couple of little mini trips before then. So absolutely, we will go through packing dive gear in the coming weeks. I promise you, that is definitely something on the list of videos. Thank you, Miranda, for your question. Really appreciate it. H. Camisotti, I think I broke that up right. It's all one word. Thanks for your question, mate. It says, first of all, let's celebrate that your eardrum is recovering. Absolutely. Back to a full teaching roster. Couldn't be happier. And we're at 100% on the ear. If anything, it's got slightly easier to equalize. Not that I really had any difficulty before, but now it seems to be easier. I don't know why that would be, but there we go. I have a few questions for you about deco. What deco model do you use? ZHL 16C or VPM? What deco software do you use? There is a book that you recommend to deep study of deco. I'm kind of a bookworm. You and me both, brother. I generally use Bowman ZHL 16C compartment deco models. Of course, I use Shearwater computers, so I use those a lot for dive planning. I do have vPlanner, which is a VPN planning device, on my phone for the convenience sake of having it on the phone that I can just, run out a quick dive plan if I had to. But really, I use the Shearwater software, which is Bowman based, and use their planning software. Is there a book that I recommend to study deco? Yes, absolutely. Let me get it for you. 1 second. So there are two, actually. First off would be the really excellent Deco for Divers by Mark Powell. I recommend that to anyone who's starting out in technical diving. It's an absolutely essential read. It's available on Amazon. I'll put a link to it in the description below. But Mark does a really excellent job of describing very complicated concepts in plain English. So that's a fantastic book for anyone who's starting out as kind of a primer. If you want to go even deeper than Mark goes in Deco for Divers, Technical Diving in Depth. And again, I'll put a link to the description of this book below. This is by an authority on decompression theory, Bruce Winker, whose name I'm sure I've butchered, but I think it's Wenker. Anyway, this guy is somewhat of an authority. He's been in technical diving for, well, as long as the term technical diving has been around. So highly recommend that read as well. Goes into a lot more detail. So first and then second. Hope that answered your question, H. Camizotti. Thank you ever so much for that. Mitchell Henderson asks, can we see the setup put together? It has to be a beast. I presume you're meaning the camera setup. Yes, absolutely. I've already filmed the studio portion of that. And like I said, I've put it out for a couple of dives already. So I've just got to put the two footages together and make an edited video. It won't be this Monday because we have the Across the Oceans episode. So it'll probably be the Monday after that. But yeah, absolutely. I'll talk you through the whole setup. Mitchell, thank you so much for your question. Martin Nielsen asks, Ask Divers Ready, I was wondering about pregnancy and diving. Martin, you probably don't have to worry about that, mate. Is it safe? Is it bad? Does the fetus take damage of high pressure? So, not being a doctor myself, I consulted another book, knowing that this question was coming up. Physiology in Plain English for Divers. Diving Physiology in Plain English by Jolie Bookspan, PhD. I've got a page earmarked for you. Chapter 4, Part 2, Issues Specific to Women. Part 1, Pregnancy. Diving while pregnant is difficult to study in humans. Much is unknown. There are many reports of women diving during pregnancy with no known ill effect on themselves or the fetus. There are a few reports of birth defects. Risks, as identified by animal studies, may be associated with the hyperbaric environment of diving or treatment for decompression illness. What women divers can do. Because of uncertainty regarding health of the woman or the fetus and the difficulty of diagnosing or treating problems in utero, the most common recommendation is not to dive during pregnancy. Hope that solves it for you. Martin, thank you so much for your question. LM, just LM, 2 letters. That's all this person needs. Firstly, glad to hear your surgery was a success, and that's coming from a Guinness drinking Canadian. Hooray! Second, I have 50 dives under my belt and I want my own backplate and wing setup. I dive warm water and was looking at Hydrolite or an X-Deep Ghost for tropical diving. Should I look at only those, or are there entry-level backplate and wing setups that would suit a rec diver better? Recreational, that is, not wreck, shipwreck. There is so much conflicting information on forums. I just want a recommendation. Look, I'll give you a recommendation. I love diving the Hydrolite. I haven't dove the X-Deep Ghost because they're not commonly available around here and I haven't managed to get my hands on one. And there are many other options out there. I've been incredibly impressed with the Hydrolite, but it's not what I would call a backplate and wing setup because it's one unit. So the definition for me of backplate and wing is that it's modular and that you can switch out the wings for different missions. You can't do that with the Hydrolite. It dives like a backplate and wing because it's entirely back inflate and it has a full donut wing encased bladder, and it trims out beautifully. It works great for warm water. I don't recommend it for cold water. Somebody asked me the other day in an email, do I recommend the Hydrolite for dry suit diving? I said absolutely not, because it's not meant to take that kind of workload. But yeah, big fan of the Hydrolite, as you guys know. I've been diving it for a while now. Are there other options out there? Yeah, sure, absolutely. The one that I always avoid, which is back inflate-esque, is the Scuba Pro Hydros. That one has a really bad habit of tachoing, and then you get gas trapped on one side or the other and end up with, you know, constantly fighting a roll. At least some of my students have experienced that. Hope that answers your question, LM. Jake Pennick asks, hell yeah, it sounds like it's time to get some gear wet. Glad you're doing better, Chief. I do have an actual question this go round. Okay, so he's in grad school to be a nurse anesthetist. Hang on. Anesthetist, thank you, and has worked as a trauma intensive care unit nurse, so I like patching up sick, shot and dying people. My question is, what courses can I take outside of the simple first aid course to be something more in line with a dive medic or advanced care provider for divers? If it helps too, most of my patients require a ventilator to breathe. Okay, hashtag Ask Divers Ready. Jake, great question, mate. Honestly, it sounds like you already have a really strong trauma background in terms of your nurse training. The next step above what we teach as sort of rescue diver and oxygen administrator, which I'm sure you're already well overqualified to do, would be to go to a hyperbaric facility and learn to be a chamber operator. Now, I know I have friends in the diving industry who are volunteer chamber operators that have been trained to run a program that if somebody gets bent on a night dive or at the weekend or whatever and the actual physician isn't available, that they can go in, start up and actually run a procedure for a hyperbaric treatment. So that might be something you want to look at. Find your local hyperbaric treatment facility, find out if they work with divers and find out if there's training available through them. Certainly, you know, I've got buddies in Cayman that run a chamber, people in Bonaire that volunteer to run a chamber. So that might be a possibility, but definitely that's sort of the next level up once you've done your basic CPR, first aid, oxygen administrator courses. Hope that answers your question, Jake. Check into it. Let me know how you get on. Stephen Toomey. I've been diving for 2 years and have gone through the advanced class and rescue. As I near 50 dives, all in cold water and around Monterey, California, I will be headed to Moorhead, North Carolina to do wreck diving in May 2021. This will be my first trip in warm water, as well as doing all-day diving from a boat. Any recommendations when it comes to making this transition? I've watched your videos on the 14 divers not to be on a boat. Well, that's already a good start, Stephen. Generally speaking, yeah. It's a lot easier to go from being a cold water diver to a warm water diver than the other way around. It's a lot less of a shock to the system. So apart from just, you know, losing yourself in the free experience of not being in a dry suit anymore and just diving wet and having that fun, there isn't really any adaptation required when you go from cold water to warm water, in my opinion. I grew up doing a lot of cold water diving, and now I've probably gotten super soft diving South Florida here. And if I went back to ice diving and cold water diving, it could be quite a shock to the system. But no, I don't really have any recommendations. You've already watched the video on boat diving. Do make sure, if you're not, you know, familiar with boats and you're unsure how it's going to handle you, then we have a video as well on how to tackle the motion of the ocean to make sure you enjoy your diving, mate. But I'm really much, you know, I'm very much looking forward to head up to North Carolina and do some of the Outer Banks and some of the wreck diving up there, which I haven't done yet, so that's on my list. Enjoy, mate. Let me know how it goes. Drew Bursey asks, hey James, I liked your recreational wing set video. Could you make a video on your tech gear setup? Well, what do you know, buddy? I made one last Monday, link up there. Check it out if you haven't done already. Thank you so much. And I think that is everything for this month. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Please, by all means, if you feel like helping us out in this race to 40 before 40, pick any of our videos, share it on any of your social media, share it with your dive buddies, introduce them to the channel. It really means the world to me. Thank you ever so much for watching. As always, Let me know in the comments below, hashtag AskDiversReady, any questions I can answer for you for next month. And until next week, next Monday, yeah. This was your Divers Ready channel update for April 2021 from Divers Ready. Dive safe, dive often.